Now, one MP who's been quite critical of the bill is the Shadow Work and Pensions Minister, Danny Kruger, who joins us now. It's great to have you here. So you're going to vote against. Just explain why.
Well, just listening to Kim there, I have great respect for what she's trying to do here, and her concern is for that, what she thinks of as a very small number of people who, at the very end of their life, want to have this option. Unfortunately, her bill doesn't restrict this new service just to that group. It's predicated on the idea that doctors can determine when someone's going to die, someone with 6 months to live. Unfortunately, it's just not the case that doctors can be so precise. Anybody with a serious condition who requires treatment can find a doctor to say that they are terminally ill. In fact, they are terminally ill if they refuse their treatment, if someone with an eating disorder declines to eat. And this happens around the world in every country where this sort of law is enforced. So even on its current terms, I'm afraid the bill is not tight enough. It's impossible to be tight enough. I'm also concerned about the principle that we're establishing. If we pass this bill, we are effectively saying, yes, some people are better off dead, and that doctors and judges should have the power to determine who those people are. I think it sends a terrible signal to the frail, to the disabled, to people with mental health conditions. And we see, in fact, campaigners from those communities universally opposed because they worry about the stigma that they already suffer from. If that were institutionalised and our healthcare system were effectively incentivised with this cheaper, easier option to free up beds, free up spaces in the healthcare system by putting people onto this compassionate pathway to a quicker death, I'm afraid we would be changing the whole nature of our relationship with medicine and with the government itself.
It feels like there's two sort of separate things to unpick slightly, the wider principle, but also the issues that you see with this individual bill. But I feel like I'm right in saying that it's the principle and the bill that you're proposed to, or is there a potential bill or safeguards that may make you support it?
Well, I'm open to that. I mean, we didn't see the bill that we're debating in a couple of weeks' time until late last night. I'm afraid it doesn't satisfy me. I don't think it would be possible to have a bill that was safe, and no law in the world is safe. So we could have hoped that here in the UK we could do what no other country has done and draw it sufficiently tightly. I don't think it's possible to do that. And you know, it is about principle as well as the practice. The practice flows from the principle. Once you've said that there's this new human right that some people can have, why shouldn't other people have it? You'd always find a doctor or indeed a judge to approve the extension of this principle once you've established it. And in practice, even without extension, the bill is dangerous, particularly to those people who might feel pressure internally to end their life because they feel a burden to others, or indeed, I'm afraid to say, because they are under pressure from family, or indeed the medical profession itself, which, as I say, wants to free up resources. So it's an enormous step we're taking if we pass this law. What we really should be doing, if I may suggest, is putting all this energy, all this political focus and a lot more money into supporting end-of-life care. The reason we have this debate is because too many people die badly in this country. They really do.
I think that's something that everyone can unite around.
Well, indeed they can, yes. And so my view is, if we had top-quality palliative care for everybody, nobody would need to seek to end their life early. They could die naturally with the support of the medical profession, well cared for, with their pain under good management. Once we get that system, then let's have a debate about whether we should include this option. But if we include the option first, we will find resources going into this option, and we will find palliative care suffers, which it does in other countries. And investment in palliative care is increasing around the world. But in countries that have assisted suicide as well, it doesn't increase as much because the resources goes into this.
I have spoken to quite a few MPs now on this issue, and I have to say I found them some of the most sort of engaging and moving, often, conversations I've had with MPs. You know, everyone comes to it with their own perspectives, and most MPs, I think, have thought very deeply about this. Do you have any kind of personal experiences that you're bringing to this, or this is more a kind of point of principle for you?
Well, the other side of this debate has a lot of personal stories, terrible stories of people who've died badly, and I always wish I could say to them, you know, the story, the case that you mentioned of your relative or your constituent who died badly, what really happened there? What should have happened? What kind of care could they have had? So I worry when people bring personal stories. Unless we were able to properly examine the care that did happen and should have happened, I'm not sure how valid those stories are. I'm afraid, as legislators, we are here to legislate for everybody, including for future people who haven't yet, you know, approached this situation. My concern is for the untold, nameless people who I fear would be victims of this law. I think we should approach it from the point of view of those vulnerable people that we don't know who they are, who would find themselves being drawn into the scope of this bill, feel under pressure from the system. And in terms of those desperately sad cases we all do hear about, and yes, I've had relatives die very badly, they shouldn't have done. The NHS should have done a better job in those cases, and that's, I think, where we should be putting our focus.
Do you have any sense on how the vote is going to go? It is quite hard to work it out because it's not a whip vote, so everyone is voting, on their own personal conscience.
Yes, well, I mean, on my side of the debate, we're doing what we can to try and understand colleagues' views. The other side will be doing the same. I think it's actually quite finely balanced. I think you've got a lot of new MPs. Over half the House of Commons is new at this last election, so they haven't got a track record of voting on it. But I think you've got a lot of new MPs who feel that this is an enormous step to be taking, and to be taking it in this way with a very short debate, with a bill that we've only had a couple of weeks to look at before it's debated and voted on, is the wrong process anyway. And while people might understand in principle the case for an assisted suicide law, they think this isn't necessarily the right way to go about it, and this bill itself has serious flaws. So I'm not sure how it's going to go. I think it is going to be pretty tough. I mean, I regret the fact that so much of the debate at the moment does seem to lean in favour of an assisted dying law, because many vocal voices have been making that case. I think the more people examine it, the more people, MPs and members of the public, look at what the bill would actually do in practice and how these laws apply in other countries, the evidence is the more they realise that this is not the path we need to go down. So while I don't think we should be debating this, we should be putting our effort into palliative care, not assisted dying. Actually, the debate is welcome because I think it's helping people to understand this isn't the right way to go.
OK, thank you very much for being on the programme. Danny Kruger there.